Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to the video. Welcome to my garage. In this video, we're going to be testing the sensors that I've wired in so far for the Infinity ECU on Wratchet. Now I'm getting very close to starting the engine up. I still have a couple things I need to do with the ECU, and I need to finish the fuel system. That's really about it. I'm pretty much there. So I think in a couple of weeks, I'll actually be firing the engine up, which is really exciting. I've got, I think all of my sensors are in place and they're wired in. I would say 75% of them I can test before I fire up the engine. And I want to do that right now so that I know that those sensors are working, so that when it actually comes time to fire up the engine, there will be fewer sensors that I have in question. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you around and I'm going to show you the sensors that we're going to do, and then I will force them to give me a value change so that in the dashboard on the ECU, I can see what they're registering. I can do something to them to change their value, and then we can see that reflected on the dashboard. That way we'll know that they're reading. We know that they're communicating with the ECU and that the ECU is communicating with the dashboard so that I can see it all. So what I've been doing so far is I've created this pinout, and this has a description of all my sensors, kind of like the wire gauge, the wire color, a description of what they do. Some of them I have part numbers and things like that. This is specific for the Infinity 506 ECU, and it is specific for the Honda J35. But in all honesty, most of the engines are going to use the same sensors, so this would be applicable to a lot of different engines if you were using the Infinity 506. Either way, this list will be in my shared folder. I'll have a link to it in the description. If you click on that, go to the shared folder and click on the Wratchet files. You'll see this in there if you guys want to check it out, or if you want to use it for whatever project you're working on. So what I'm going to do is I've highlighted the sensors that we're going to look at, and that's going to be the throttle body, the accelerator pedal position sensor, or the gas pedal, the engine temp, radiator temp, intake air temp, the map sensor, fuel pressure, oil pressure. We're going to have the crank sensor, the cam sensor, and then we're going to verify that the main relay is operating and that fan and fan 2 relays are operating. So I don't have a battery mounted in Wratchet yet, so I've just got a 12-volt battery here kind of wired in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to power up the Infinity ECU, and then I'll set up a camera filming the digital dash here so that we can see the sensors. And then what I'll do is I'll pick one sensor at a time, and I'll do something to it to get it to register. Okay, let's get some life going in Wratchet here. First thing I need to do is turn on my battery disconnect, and then I need to come over here and turn on the ignition, and then that should bring the screen to life. And then I've got a screen set up here that gives me the best information. I keep tailoring this as I keep building onto the system. And then I've got a GoPro here set up. This will be filming the screen so that I can show you guys the values change as we're doing different things. So during this video, if you guys hear a little high-pitched, little whining noise, that is the throttle body. Whenever the fuel injection is on, it's controlling the throttle body, and the motors make a little bit of a whining noise. Since this ignition is going to be on during this whole video, if you do hear a little whining noise, I can hear it right now. I don't know if you guys can hear it. That's what that noise is. So if you look, I have throttle pedal position, and that's the throttle position of the actual throttle pedal. So you'll see it says 0, and as I depress the pedal, that registers the pedal. And then you can see I've told the ECU to turn these lights on with that. I can change that to RPM. I can really change that to anything I want, but just as I'm playing around with the throttle, I've set those to the throttle pedal for fun. And then you can see down here is the throttle position. Now this is the throttle position of the throttle body. So is this. This is telling me just in general the throttle body. This is actually telling me one of the throttle position sensors is at 13. They should be the same. The throttle body is a little bit open because it never wants to close that 100%. But you can see it goes up with the throttle pedal. So I know that the throttle pedal is working. So let's go around and get a little picture of the throttle body to make sure that's moving as well. So I think you guys can see the throttle body there. You'll see that when I hit the gas pedal, that's operating in sync with the pedal. So that's good. So for the throttle body and the throttle pedal, everything is working there as it should. Now let's get a reading on the fuel pressure sensor. This is the fuel pressure sensor right now. It's reading where you would normally tap your gauge in to the fuel pressure regulator. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to disconnect the lines right here, and I'm going to shoot a little bit of air pressure into the fuel supply line, and that should make it register. Oh, damn it. That was the return. All right, here's the supply. This should work better now. All right, sweet. All right, that's cool. You can definitely see as I put, I think I've got like 25 to 30 PSI here, and it's registering on the fuel pressure sensor, so that's all working properly. Now, as long as we're working on pressure sensors, let's go after the oil pressure sensor, and if you can see right here, this is basically the same sensor, but it's tied into my oil port. So what I'm going to do for that, there's oil in the engine and everything, so I'm just going to crank the engine over, and it should register pressure on the gauge after I build it up, after I build up pressure. Now you can see right now the oil pressure says 12. That's because this gauge reads down to 0 PSI. It doesn't go any lower than that. And where I live here, it's at 6,200 feet. So I'm actually at a negative pressure. And so the sensor, when it's just sitting here at atmospheric, is out of range. And you can see the fuel pressure and the oil pressure. For some reason, they just default to 12. But you'll see when I start to build this pressure, that'll go to 0 and then it'll start to read. So just ignore that 12 for now. All right, so let's make some pressure. All right, we got oil pressure, so I know that sensor's working. It's reading to the ECU, and the ECU's going to the dash. Now there are 3 temperature sensors on this vehicle. There's this temperature sensor, which is the incoming air temperature sensor. And then I installed this temperature sensor, which I'm calling the radiator temperature. And this is the temperature in the radiator right before it goes back into the engine. And then right now, this temperature sensor, which is on the incoming side of the radiator, I'm using as my engine temperature sensor. These 2 hoses right here are coming from the cylinder heads. So this water should be pretty close to the actual temperature of the engine. However, I initially did that because I didn't have a location for an actual sensor in the cylinder head. But you can't see this. But I found out I did have to install a blank off plate right here, and I think that's a location where I can put an actual cylinder head temperature sensor. So I think I will be moving that sensor from over there to over here, but for right now, that's where it's located. So I've got the air temp, incoming, and outgoing. So I've got 3 sensors right there. So what I'm going to do is, you can see those 3 sensors. It's about 54, 55 degrees right now in this garage. And all I'm going to do is take my little heat gun and just heat those up a little bit, and we should see them operate. All right, so I got the heat gun, so I'm just going to start warming these up. And we should see them register on the dash. I can't see this one from where I am here. Is it going up? Yeah, okay. So that one's gone from 55 up to 70. So let's go to the radiator leaving temp. Yeah, okay, woo, that one's at 100. And now I'm going to go to the engine temp, which should be the top one. Yep, that one's working too. So the map gauge, I don't really know how I can test that one. I could maybe put the spark plugs in and close the throttle body and see if that one reacts, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm just gonna, it seems to be reading, that's in kilopascals, and it is registering in PSI in the laptop, and it is registering negative 2.8 PSI, which is pretty much right on par with 6,200 feet, so I'm just going to assume that the map sensor is operating properly. Let's go after the crank sensor, which you can't see, but there's a crank sensor down in there. The plug for it is right down here. There's a crank sensor. It's a 12 count variable reluctant sensor, and then there's a camshaft sensor here, which I had to make some modifications to, which I have, and then this is the camshaft sensor coming back. It should be registering. I haven't synced it yet, so it should know that the engine's rotating. It just doesn't know where it is in relation to top dead center. But for now, I just want to make sure that it's registering, and I should be able to just crank it, and the RPM should go up. So let's see if that holds true. Yeah, okay. So it is at least registering those sensors, and it's recording the information, and I got up to about 200 RPM, which seems pretty accurate for cranking an engine without any spark plugs. So like I said, I haven't synced that yet. I'll probably be doing that in the near future here, but I at least know that my sensors are wired in properly and it is seeing a signal from them, so I'm good with that. So if I'm looking at our list, we have throttle body, sensor, engine temp, radiator, air temp, map sensor, fuel pressure, oil pressure, we're good with that. Crank and cam sensor, we just did those. The main fan relay, I know that that's working because as soon as you turn on the ignition, it activates that relay to power the ECU, so I know that's working. So we've got cooling fan 1 and 2. So this is fan number 1, this is fan number 2. Oddly enough, because I'm a weirdo, I actually put fan number 3 on my switch panel. So that one I operate manually. The only reason I did that is for some strange reason I like to have one fan that I have control over. I don't know. That's really weird. If I want to, I can hook this up to the ECU as well, but for now I'm just going to leave this one as manual. This one and this one are automatic. These are being controlled off of the engine coolant temperature switch. So I think if I go get my laptop, I can manipulate those to turn on at a very low temperature, like maybe 85 degrees, and then we can warm up this sensor again, and we should be able to watch those two fans come on, and that the relays here, this is fan 1 and fan 2, are wired in properly, and they're getting power from the fuse block, and everything there is working. Alright, so I've got my laptop out here, and I just plugged into the ECU. So I'm going to go into the setup wizard where I can go to my basic sensors, and I'm going to go, actually, no, sorry, take that back. I'm going to go into advanced, nope, I'll take that back. Obviously I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Output function assignments. So coolant fan 1. Right now this is set to 155. Let's take this down to fan 1. Let's make that 75. And then we will have it turn off at 70. Alright. And then we'll go to fan number 2. And we'll have that one turn on at, let's say, 85. And we'll have that one turn off at 80. Alright, now we should be able to heat up that engine coolant sensor and have it turn on the fans. Alright, now I got the fans set up so that when I put the heat gun on the coolant sensor here, we should see this fan turn on, and then as it gets warmer it should turn on this fan, and then as we let it cool those should turn off. So let's see if that works. Alright, we just reached 75, so fan number 1 came on. And it just went up to 85, so now fan number 2 came on, which is awesome. So now as it cools down, they should turn themselves off. Alright, we just reached 80, so fan number 2 just turned itself off. When we reach 70, this one should turn off. Alright, we just reached 70 degrees on the coolant temperature switch, so now this fan has turned off. So both of those worked, which means the fans are working, they're wired properly to the relays are getting voltage properly from the distribution block, and the ECU is wired properly to the fan relays. So that's awesome. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I just wanted to share some of the progress with the ECU. I've been focusing, since I got the radiator set up, I've been focusing a little bit more lately on the engine and the ECU. I have to do the fiberglass one-piece front end. That's a big project that's kind of sitting in front of me. I got to start working on that, but I might try to fire up the engine first just because that'll be such a huge accomplishment in getting Wratchet up and rolling. Testing all of those sensors and making sure that all of that stuff is done, I'd say I'm 75% of the way to starting up the engine. So it's really exciting seeing those sensors come to life because it kind of makes it feel like Wratchet's coming to life in one way or another. So either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was fun for you. It's fun for me seeing these things come to life. So thanks for watching the video. I hope it's helping you with whatever projects you might be working on. And I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.